Okay, it's been a long time. So we're up to now chapter 10. And I figured we'll try and do chapter 10 and 11 today. We're through, there are going to be some really difficult parts of Tanya, like chapter like 20, 21, 22, 23, are all they're very deep and complicated. But we're through the bushes a little bit right now, in that we've got now quite a lot of vocabulary to work with. The way the Tanya works, basically, that unlike any other sefer that I know, is it's so methodical in building you the picture of Yiddishkeit that we need to be Yidden. So the beginning of the sefer is basically dedicated to giving you a vocabulary. I want to throw this out to you guys. Can some of you guys throw out some of the words that we now can give definitions to that we didn't have before we started the sefer? Without opening your book, Yitzi.
I'm afraid what you're gonna like what as an example.
Just tell me a word that you didn't know the definition of before we started learning that you now know a definition for.
Sitra Achra.
Okay, definition.
Giving us the illusion that there's something other than Hashem. Picking ourselves, choosing ourselves.
So you went much further there. But what you said, the Sitra Achra basically means the other side. What's the difference between Sitra Achra and Klipah? Like Eitan, you haven't been in this shit. You've heard, you know these words, obviously, yeah? You can give us any definitions. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but most people wouldn't be able to give a definition to either of those words, Sitra Achra or Klipah.
I mean, Klipah is a little bit easier to, I don't know, for me at least. Klipah is referring to the shell that coats, what's hidden inside the good, and the shell kind of like mistakes us to believe that that's what it is, but it's really got to be peeled away to really see what's on the inside.
So that's really what he said about Sitra Achra. It gives you the illusion that there's something other than Hashem.
Yeah.
So really, what we learned is Sitra Achra and Klipah are synonymous. They're the same thing, but they're referring to different aspects of the same thing. So Sitra Achra is referring to the fact, Yitzi, can you answer this one? What is it we learn from Sitra Achra? The term Sitra Achra. What is it? What is it? So Sitra Achra is referring to the mahus of Ra. The mahus of Ra isn't. Ra does not have a mahus. So it's just the Sitra Achra. What is it? You can't say what it is. You can just say what it isn't. It's just the other side. It's not Elokus. So what is it? It doesn't have a mahus. It doesn't have any mamashas. It's not a real thing. It's not real, Bakitza. So Sitra Achra is explaining to us that it's not real. So what does Klipah do? So Sitra Achra is telling us the essence of Ra. Klipah is telling us the avoida of Ra. The avoida of Ra is that, like what Eitan says, it covers over. That's how it works. That's its function. So Sitra Achra describes the essence of Ra, and Klipah describes the function of how Ra works. Ra covers over. There's other words like Chitzonim we didn't speak about. There's also Tzimtzum, Hestapanim. There's other there's other words. Another word that we have a definition for. Someone can throw out.
Klipah's Noga.
What's Klipah's Noga?
I'm saying it's versus Klipah's Gimel Tameus. Is that how you say it?
The difference in the two kinds of Klipahs.
One of them, you can bring out a holiness, you can bring out kedusha, and one, it's not going to happen. You have no option. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's not really that's not discussing the actual Klipah itself. That's talking about the ramifications of it. The actual Klipah, the difference is Klipah's noiga. It's in the words noiga. Very important to always remember that every label that Chazal gave to everything is perfect. The thing couldn't be described in any better way than the words that Chazal give to it. In anything that Chazal call anything, yeah, that is it. My own theory is like how, you know, how Adam was called to name the behemoths. And really what he did was he saw the shorish of the behemoth and he called that a shor, he called that an ari, that giraffe, whatever. And but that's I think what Chazal did with all the inyanim, that they saw the inyan so clear that they labeled it, they actually gave it its correct name. It's not just they gave it a name. So Klipah's noiga, Klipah is exactly that, is exactly the what it is, it covers over. Yeah, it's also a very important part of Klipah is that it's a means to an end. You disregard the Klipah has no function unto itself. That's a very, very important point. Okay, Klipah's noiga, the word noiga means it shines. So Klipah's noiga is a more, Sean Michael, Klipah's noiga is a more refined Klipah, which means you can access the kedusha that is covering over. Remember, it's only covering over one thing because there is only one. There's only one. There's only the Rabboni Sholem. So everything is covering the Rabboni Sholem. So Klipah's noiga means that we have access because it's noiga. It shines. It's light. It's more dark, that we can actually access the Elokus inside the thing. Whereas Klipah's Tameus, which we said the completely impure Klipah, is a thicker Klipah, which means we don't have access to the Elokus that it's covering. But the very important part to understand of Klipah always is that it's a means to an end. To get this clear in your life, yeah, to be mavar this point, I just need to get a glass of water. Just give me about 15 seconds. You can be mavar in your life what it ends and what it means to ends. You are in really, really good shape.
We want to get to the end and to itself, right? That's the kedusha. That's the goal. So everything that's not kedusha is either Klipah snoga or Klipah gimel tameis, right? And you have to find the kedusha within there. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm not quite sure. Give me an example. What do you mean?
But you just said it means. I'm trying to understand the difference between a means to an end and the end to itself. We want to get to the end.
You need to get to LA. You need to get to New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get in an airplane and you get to New York. You're going. Let's say you're going skiing. What do you do in New York? Something that, like, tell me something pleasurable that you do. Where does someone go skiing? Colorado. Yeah. You ski in Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going on a skiing trip to Colorado from LA. How long's the journey? How long's the flight? Whatever.
3 hours.
3 hours. So you're going on a 3-hour journey. Listen to this in a minute. This is amazing, this point. You're going on a 3-hour journey from LA to Colorado so you can ski. What's the end and what's the means to the end?
So the plane is the means. The end is on the mountain.
The journey, exactly. The journey is the means, and the pleasure, the skiing down the slope, is the end. Now listen to this part, which is exactly why Klipah is Klipah. We just said it covers over, yeah? And now I'm saying, oh, it's a means to an end also. Everyone's with me? It's the same thing. covering over and means to an end is the same thing. It's very simple. Listen to this. When I see you skiing down the slope, yeah? I mean, you're not going to catch me skiing down the slope, put it that way. Yeah? Like, I mean, I would like to, but you're just not going to see that, yeah? A certain person goes skiing. You learn something about that person when you see them skiing down the slope, yeah? What do you learn about that person when you see them sitting on the airplane? Moyudik, no? Means to an end conceals who you are. So when you're on the airplane getting to the mountain to go skiing, you're just another faceless guy on the airplane. All I know is that you're going somewhere, but I don't know anything about you. But when I see you skiing on the mountain, I know something about it. When I see you lying on the deck chair in Florida, I know something about you. When I see you sitting in the base medrash in Bnei Brak, I know something about you, where you got to. So the Klipah is a cover. And it is a means to an end, but it's Hainuhach, it's the same thing. When you're doing something not for itself, it conceals who you are. When you're doing something for itself, like why are you skiing down the mountain? You're skiing down the mountain because it gives you pleasure. Shalom Amir, good to see you. You're skiing down the mountain because it gives you pleasure. Yeah, that's an end. Pleasure's always an end. Pleasure's always an end. Yeah, why do you like pleasure? There's no reason. Why are you going skiing? Why are you on the plane? Because I want to go skiing. Why are you going skiing? Because I want to get the pleasure. Why do you want the pleasure? I just want the pleasure. All the reasons flow from the pleasure, but the pleasure is reasonless. Pleasure is the essence of who you are. So this is a good way of jumping into the shir now. That was all just Hakdama. But the point is, until this point here, really it began in Perek Tes, but now the Rebbe is starting to put all the pieces together. We know what Kedusha is, we know what Klipah's Noiga is, but there's endless depth to these ideas. But at least we've got some kind of definition, some kind of working, some kind of something. So we know what Klipah is, we know what Klipah's Tameres is, Klipah's Noiga, we know what Levushim are, Machshava Dibur Maisa. We know that the Mahus of the Nefesh is split into Seichel and Midas. We know there's what's called the Nefesh Bahamis, there's the Nefesh Adakis. The Nefesh Bahamis wants to be, the Nefesh Adakis, we haven't actually spoken about what the desire of the Nefesh Adakis actually is. But anyway, now the Rebbe starts to put it all together. And the way the Rebbe chose to put it together in his infinite genius is using these three madregas, Tzaddik, Beinoni, and Rasha, which divides into five madregas: Tzaddik v'Tovloi, Tzaddik v'Raloi, Beinoni, Rasha v'Tovloi, Rasha v'Raloi. Yeah, and by describing these five, now it's so important to know this. This is not five people. The Rebbe was not interested Bichlal in giving you a way to box Jews, a way to define Jews. Chaz v'shalom, we should ever define any Jew, ever define any relation. Whenever you define a relationship, it's like putting infinity into a little pint glass. It's ridiculous. To try and describe someone, you can't describe anyone. You can only just describe stuff about them. You can never describe anyone. You can never describe a person. You can only describe the things about them, stuff they do, stuff they've got. And you can't describe them. Same with relationships. The minute you start to try and box them in, it's tragic. So the Rebbe is not trying to give us these five different categories of Jews, and it's like, okay, you're a tzaddik, you're a Rasha, you're a Beinoni. That's not what the Rebbe is trying to do. The depth of how I've understood this, what I've learned from my Rebbe, is that he's describing five internal Jewish states, 5 possible internal Jewish experiences. There's the experience of the Tzadik V'Tovloi, the Tzadik V'Raloi, the Beinoni, the Rasha V'Tovloi, the Rasha V'Raloi. And they are experiences that all of us can be zeicha to on a daily basis. And it could be that we would gravitate to one of them. And if we're, this is a spoiler alert, if you're going to have to box yourself into one that you're usually in, you would probably be, everyone knows this already, but you'd probably have to put yourself in the Rasha V'Tovloi category, which is a vast category. Yeah, but that's not, again, the point is, we're not trying to do that. The Rebbe is trying to now help us internalize more deeply all of this jargon that we've been learning, all of these inyanim, all of these ideas. And the way that he's done that, the tool that he's decided to use to do that is these five categories. Okay, so
can I just one question? Back to the skiing muscle just for a second, because I've been kind of like paused on that. Just to be clear, the Klipah would be basically that all I see is sitting on the plane. That's my mitzvah. Like that sitting on the plane is the end game, which by definition means nothing because it's not true.
I don't understand.
Me neither.
Take it out. Let's take it out. Take it out. Let's say like this. Let's take it away from the aeroplane marshal, and let's just say a guy is davening shachris. Now, well, let's say that it's worth taking a time out to get this clear. So let's I'll give you another marshal that'll help us, I hope. A guy lives next door to an old almana. Yeah? Recently widowed, lovely little old lady. Okay? And he wants to make her dinner. Now, I'm going to give you 3 scenarios. Each scenario is the same. It's the same thing. The actual lemaisa, the exact same things happen. The exact same thing happens. The guy cooks the meal. He walks over to her house. And with a big smile, he presents her with the hot dish. That's going to happen in each of these 3 scenarios, yeah? Now, the first scenario is he's sitting there at home and he's watching the TV, and all of a sudden he remembers about Mrs. Cohen next door, and he's overcome by he feels really bad for the lady. And he's like, what could I do that would give her some kind of, what can I do that would give her pick her up a little bit? And he makes her the meal. Okay, that's scenario 1. Scenario 2, he's sitting there and he's looking to get himself a job at this company, and he knows that Mrs. Cohen's son is the CEO of this company. And he's decided that he thinks it's a good strategic move for him to make Mrs. Cohen a hot meal, because l'chorah she's going to tell her son, and he's got a better chance of getting his foot in the door, yeah? That's number 2. Number 3, the neighbor next to Mrs. Cohen, yeah, he really hates this guy, for whatever reason. And he knows somehow, what's up, that the guy next door is intending to make Mrs. Cohen a meal tonight, yeah? So he makes the meal earlier and he brings it to Mrs. Cohen, dafka, to screw up this other guy that he hates, because she's going to be full and she's not going to want the meal. So the same thing happened in every scenario, yeah? He makes the meal, he walks over with a big smile, hands to the dish. So in the first case, the Klipah was really the making of the meal was a means to an end. And the giving her the meal, the pleasure she's going to have, she was the end. She was the end. That Klipah got raised up. The second scenario Now, he wasn't being utterly selfish. He wasn't trying to harm anyone, but she wasn't the end. He was the end. So really, he's making the meal. So in a sense, he became the Klipah, but not in a negative sense. He made himself the means to the end, and she was the end, and he became nichlal in her. The Klipah always becomes nichlal in the pleasure, in the purpose, in the tachlis. Yeah? Everyone's with me?
Yeah.
So he becomes nichlal in her. That means that the Klipah got an aliyah, because the end was the Rabbeinu Shalom, so to speak, was this other person. The second case, she became Klipah. And she became nichlal in him. But he wasn't being like completely raw. He wasn't trying to, it was just being naughty. He was just being human. He was just trying to get, he was just trying to, just being human. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with doing that at all. Yeah. It's not like noble. You don't think he's a great guy, but he didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. He's looking out for himself, not hurting anyone else. In fact, she was zeicha to a nice meal. Give him a pat on the back. But she still, in a sense, became a level of Klipah nichlal in him. Finally, the final thing is he was the end exclusively, and everything else was a means to an end. Everything got dragged down into Klipah's Timaeus. That's the point of when you're going on the journey to go skiing. The skiing's the toughest. That's where you're going, and that's the reason why you're going. That's from that is flowing all the reasons, as in the reason why you're on the aeroplane. So the ride of the aeroplane becomes nichlal in the skiing trip. It was almanas, your skiing trip. When I'm making the meal, I made it a little more complicated. I didn't need to give you 3 examples. I used that for a different limud, but whatever. So when I'm making a meal for Mrs. Cohen, and I'm doing it to damage someone else, now all of that becomes Klipah. All of that is means to an end. And if I could have damaged that guy some other way, then I don't care. She becomes arbitrary. She's just, do you understand? She's completely nichlal in me. She's irrelevant. She's just the tool. It's like marrying someone for money, marrying a lady for money, or marrying her for her sense of humor, or marrying her for a good midas even, marrying her for a reason. Any reason you're marrying someone, that's the beginning. But you do need to marry them for a reason. But the real relationship is when all the reasons fall away and there's just a person left. There's nothing, can't talk about that. That's too holy to speak about. So in regards to Shachris now, Shachris could be a tachlis. Why are you davening Shachris? What do you mean why I'm davening Shachris? I'm a yid, I need to daven Shachris. The other guy can say, why are you davening Shachris? I've got to get to work. You can't work if you haven't davened Shachris. Yeah, I got to get. So Shachris becomes a means to an end. I'm just trying to get through it. You can't get away from that, but it becomes
gotta get the daf yomi shit.
So whenever something becomes a means to an end, that's called Klipah. The gabe now it depends. See, that means that shaking lulav and esrog could become a Klipah. Chas v'shalom. If you're doing you're doing the mitzvah for some kind of ulterior motive, I shouldn't say this, but like let's say for olam haba, yeah, ruchmanus, yeah, shouldn't say such a thing. But when a person is doing a mitzvah for olam haba, I don't want to speak it out because it's better to do the mitzvah for olam haba than not to do the mitzvah. But just plug it into everything we just said. What's ikka? What's toffel? What's the Klipah? What's the tachlis? Your pleasure in olam haba. The only way of getting there is the mitzvah. So I suppose I have to do the mitzvah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That's a very negative situation to be in. And if someone says to you, lo lishma bo lishma, then I would say back to them what the Moranayim says, where he said, you're right. Metoich lo lishma bo lishma. It's metoich, the sina that you have for the fact that you're being lo lishma, you'll come to lishma. And that is true. The fact that you hate the fact that it drives you nuts, the fact that you're doing mitzvahs for some kind of ulterior motive. Forget Olam Haba. We're too low for Olam Haba. We just want the geschmack in this world. We want to feel close to God. We want to feel meaning in our life. We want to be, worth something. Yeah. All of that is still the same thing. It's still Majay. I'm sorry to be so stark, but this is
the whole sugya of being mevatel. No, I mean batlan is just that's the whole sugya of that. No.
The sugya of doing everything lishma and not for you. It's two choices. Us or God.
All right. But I'm saying a lot of times it's that fine line of like enjoying the geschmackkeit or the olam haba, whatever it is. It's just being completely mevatel. And no, I'm not doing it for anything. I'm doing it because it's a mitzvah, because Hashem wants me to.
Someone said that to me the other day, and you're right. It's like a very fine line. I said to him, it's like missing out the dot in gmail.com.
Yeah.
Just the dot.
Yeah, just the dot, but then you can't send a message.
Makes all the difference. But we spoke about the sword analogy, no?
Yes.
We said the sword analogy. That's the point. It's not up to you to become lishma. You can just hate being low lishma, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Eitan, you heard this? What caused the whole hishtalshlus of the sipur of Rabbi Shimon? You remember the story in the Gemara?
He didn't. The Greeks. He didn't rat out. He didn't say anything bad about what's going on in the world.
Shimon?
Oh, he was the opposite.
Wait, Eitan. I've said this. Eitan. You remember the story in Shabbos about Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda? I can't hear you. Oh, you're on mic. You're on mute. I can't hear.
I'm blanking on the first part of the story right now.
So the first part of the story is Rabbi Yehuda says, look how wonderful the actions of the Romans are. They build the bathhouses, they make the bridges, the
roads and everything, yeah.
Fuck him and the shuks, yeah. Rabbi Yossi was shusuk, didn't say anything, and Rabbi Shimon turned around and said, no, it was all a tzorich atzman. Those are the words. L'tzorich atzman. They made the bridges for Meches. They made the bathhouses for Tainug. They made the shvakas for Zoiners. Yeah. What happened from that? The whole story. He had to go to the basement. Then he went to the cave. He was there for 12 years. They wrote the Zoya and so what's the shoresh of Torah Panemius? The whole shoresh of we have the whole Torah Panemius because Rabbi Shimon couldn't stand something low lishma. Rabbi Yehuda said, "Then look, and this is a machlokas tanoim. It's not like Rabbi Yehuda was wrong, and it's not like Rabbi Shimon was right. It's a machlokas tanoim. Rabbi Yehuda said, look how nice their meisim are. Rabbi Shimon was like, no, it was all done for themselves. Rabbi Yehuda's like, what are you talking about? They Soif Kol Soif, they made bridges, they made bathhouses, like the guy brought the food for the woman. He bought the dish for the woman. Didn't hurt anyone in doing it. Is that good or bad? That's good. But Rabbi Shimon's like, no, kulu panimi. That's Shimon. That's lost of shmir as opposed to Re'iyah, Reuven. There's Reuven and Shimon. So Shimon is the inyan of internalizing. That's why Shalom Bayis is the avoider of shmir. Re'iyah is the avoider of making the erusin. You have to see her first. But once you've seen her, now it's all about shmir, because the relationship is built on shmir, not on re'iyah. You can I live in Israel, yeah. So you go and get this in America. When you daven next to someone, yeah, within like a day, you know everything about them. Yeah, in Israel, I've davened next to this guy for 15 years. Yeah, 15 years. I have no idea what his name is. No idea what his name is. We smile at each other a lot. We like each other a lot. We've never spoken to each other. We know he sits like one seat away from me. Yeah. So I've seen him for countless hours. What do I know of him? Nothing. I know he's got a nice white beard. He's got a nice smile. I know nothing of him. That's Re'iyah. That's why after Matan Torah, which was Kulu Re'iyah, we did the Cheta Egel. You don't get to know someone through Re'iyah. Ata Haresa Ledas. The reason why you saw was to come to Das. How do we come to Das? What's Moilid Das?
Bina.
Bina. Bina Shmiya. So Adus, that's why Ayin Dalad and Da is opposite. You've got Adus, Ayin Dalad, and Da is Dalad Ayin. So Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad, we've got the big Ayin and the big Dalad. What are we being made to? By the way, Adus is always Re'iyah. We've been made to the Amen, the Kel Melech Ne'eman, the hidden words before Shema, which you say when you're B'Yechidus. That's what you're bearing Adus to, but that's not what Yidden know about. Yidden aren't about Adus. Yidden are about Adus with internalization. Yidden about Re'iyah and Shmiya together. Yidden are about Chochmah and Bina coming to Das. Ata Hareis LeDas. So the Shmiya is how you internalize it. I get to know you through hearing you. I get to know you through hearing you, not through seeing you. Where do we go? Why did we say this? So that's Rabbi Shimon. That was Rabbi Shimon. Is Kulu Pnimi. That's the inyan of Pnimius HaTorah. That's what Pnimius HaTorah is. That's why there's Chitzonius and Pnimius. Pnimius means, why is this guy on the aeroplane? What does it mean that something's Pnimi to something else? If something's Pnimi to something else, it means it's the Siba for it. So you can talk about things being very high and things being very deep. It's the same inyan. Like Kesser can be called the highest and it could be the deepest. It's just depending on what what's the word?
Arrogant or
What system you want to go, whatever, however you want to talk about it, it depends. Usually like whatever. So the Pnimius of the guy being on the airplane is his skiing trip. The Chitzonius is the airplane. That's why that's another reason why Ra is called Chitzonim. So
Rabbi, I'm so sorry. I have to go. I just want to say goodbye. But please, somebody send me the rest of the share, okay? I would love to see that the rest of it.
Nice having
you.
So this relationship it's always everywhere, all the time. It's so important to catch this. When you're with your children, you should never, ever, ever should they be a means to an end. Ever. If you actually need a glass of water and you're sitting there on the couch with your feet up and you actually really need the glass of water and you're going to ask your kid for the glass of water and you're not being miskaven to the child learning about how he should respect his father, then it's a shaila whether or not you should ask him for the water. Get up and get it yourself.
You know, a means to an end, if you want to learn with your children, is that the end or is that a means to an end?
That depends on you, my friend. You could spank your kids lishma, and you could learn with your kids lo lishma. Look, Ashur, what you're doing. That's the point. That's where Rabbi Shimon was about. Rabbi Shimon was like, I don't care what they did. They did it for themselves. And Aliba de MS, he's right. Because if you do it for yourself, it just so happens that it coincided with everybody else's need. But if you're really doing it for yourself, then I would tread on you. Because if I become ultimately important, then it might be, if you're like a wealthy investor, whatever, then I'm going to treat you like God. But it's all about me. If it's all about me and you're not a big investor, then I'll treat you like dirt. I'll tread on you and I'll do what I want to you. That's the ultimate level. That's the ultimate level of when I become Ikka. When I stop becoming Ikka and everything Toffel, and I become Echad, and everything else stops existing. Or really, there's Ikka and Toffel, and then there's Echad and Achra. If the Klipah falls to the Madrega of Echad, then everything else becomes Achra. And like we said, Achra means it doesn't have any reality unto itself. It's Achra. It's just other than me. What's their relationship to you? It's just not me. That's so Ikka and Toffel is already a Madrega. I'm Ikka, you're Toffel. That's a Madrega. The lowest level to fall to would become I'm Echad, which is the Bechin of the snake. That's why the snake lost his arms and legs by the Chait. He became Echad, a Pas Echad. The Klipah fell to such a Madrega that now it was possible for the Klipah to believe that he was Echad and everything else was Achra. Before that, he had arms and legs, which is a shtikul tsur shem havaya. Shtikul tsur shem havaya, which means I'm Ikka, everything else is Toffel. But by Chet Eitz Adas, the Klipah fell down deeper to the point where it became Echad. Now it's possible to believe that I'm Elokus, not just that I'm Choshev, that I'm Elokus, and there's nothing else. Ein od milvadi. That's what Paro said. Paro said, Ani v'afsi oid. Meaning, and what did Moshe say? Moshe said, Ein od milvado, the exact opposite. It's not, so Moshe was kashor to the Echad Emiti. Paro was kashor to the Echad Dimyoni. But it's the same Bechina. That's why the fight was between them.
That way with the Nachash, you just went like this is because he looks like the number one.
He's a plus. He's a plus. He doesn't have any.
It's unbelievable.
And his tongue, by the way, is forked. His tongue is two, meaning that he's really internally, he's really hafrada and fragmentation and period and everything. That's Ra. He's completely the opposite of Echad. The Panemius of Ra is completely period, but the Chetzonius of Ra is Ani v'afsi oid.
Apologies. I also have to run. God willing, see you next week.
We didn't even, and I'm going to close. This the truth is, I didn't actually prepare for the. I mean, I prepared for. I didn't write down. I didn't write one of those sheets. It's been a really crazy few weeks, and I didn't write down one of those sheets. So I think it's good that we had. This has been a very good, like Gabriel actually asked before to give a sequum of everything. So I'm just going to introduce quickly the 5 Madrigas, but the next class we'll be chapter 10 and 11 anyway. In fact, I'm gonna give you a quick overview, Bezrat Hashem, of Tzaddik Benoni in Russia. Okay? Bezrat Hashem. A Tzaddik is a person who is internally clean. He doesn't live in a divided world. He's not interested by himself. We know that by now, that there's no, you could say the guy's into, he likes baseball, he likes Bugattis, he likes looking at bad stuff online, etc. Yeah, but we really know at the end of the day, all that is he just likes himself, and himself happens to get oined from these things. So the tzaddik doesn't have any kind of, he doesn't have any divided internal world. He's all about Hashem. Both tzaddikim. The Russia. Now, let me go back to. So now, if the internal world of the Russia of the tzaddik is non-divided and completely in sync with Hashem, then obviously his external world, meaning his garments, meaning his thought, speech, and action, are also going to be completely in line with God. There's no, what's the other option? So we've got the tzaddik who's basically perfect inside and perfect outside. Now you've got the Rasha, who obviously isn't perfect inside. It wouldn't be much of a Rasha if he didn't desire anything selfish. So his internal world is divided. Doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. That's the ultimate level of Rasha, and that's well, we experience that b'shas avera. You know, like, I mean, I hope none of us do averas, but in the, when you know it's an avera, as you do it, as you decide to click on that tray thing on the computer, as you decide to click that thing, yeah, you realize that there's only one thing in the world at that second, that millisecond, only one thing, and that's you, nothing else, as you click the button. And for Keret, as you pull the strap on the tefillin, as you're doing the mitzvah, there's only one, and you're not it. It's the same thing. So again, we're going to talk in depth, B'ezrat Hashem, about when we experience these different experiences. But the Rasha Lamaisa has got a split inner world. There's him and there's Hashem. It's not all about me. And we're going to see it's a vast spectrum. Rasha Varalo can be anything from like a really, really horrible guy to what we would basically call a complete tzaddik. 100%. So it's a very big spectrum. But the point with inside the Rasha, there's me and God. On an external level, and this is the reason why he's called a
Sorry, 1 second. In every case of Russia, there's me and God.
Yes.
So when you a ricious
no, except from the very lowest level of Russia.
right, the lowest level doesn't have God at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we're not really talking about him. We're talking about regular Rasha, and that guy is that's a very a unique situation. But we do experience it. Like I said, the shas at what was it called? The chalasa. What was it called, Gabriel? The chalasa mitzvah. The nakudas chalasa mitzvah. What's it called? When you pull the tefillin, it's called the nakudas chalasa mitzvah. There's a technical term, but I can't remember. But the so the Russia's world, chutz from the Russia gum or the Russia Rala, we're not talking about. In the Russia's world, there's always me and God, and that can be to varying degrees. And that will be to varying degrees. But why is he called a Russia? What makes him a Rasha?
That he has the me in him instead of just Kulei Hashem. I don't know.
That doesn't make him a Rasha. What makes him a Rasha is that occasionally he acts that out. Not only does he feel it, he sometimes occasionally does it, says it, or thinks it.
As opposed to
As opposed to
a Bainani?
with you. We'll see that in a minute. So the Rasha is divided internally, and there's only one division. You can only be divided between one of two. There's only you and him. So there's me and there's the Ribbono Shel Olam. Okay. Now, in regards to how I act, if I do, no matter how occasionally I do it, if I do something that goes neged Ratzon Hashem, now I've fallen into the category of a Rasha. That's what a Rasha is. A Rasha doesn't mean that you have a sense of self. A Rasha means that you occasionally act selfishly.
Couldn't control him.
Exactly. And that now leads us to the Beinoni. So we've got the tzaddik, who's perfect inside and perfect outside. Yeah? Meaning Midas and Levushim. Yeah, emotions and behavior. Then we've got the Russia, who's imperfect inside and imperfect outside, meaning he is not perfect midas-wise, he feels himself, and he's not perfect externally. He does stuff wrong every now and again. Could be very rarely. But it's like, there's a guy who would not cheat on his wife. He just wouldn't. He couldn't. No way. And then there's a guy who basically wouldn't ever. But in that situation, with enough time and it could happen. So it actually comes out technically that a Russia, if you really want to be very technical, and Rav Yoel Khan speaks about this, if you really want to be technical, it could be that a Russia didn't actually do an Avera. It just means that he could do an Avera. He just never got round to it yet.
I thought you said that he acts on it.
So yeah, I went a little bit deeper there. That was maybe not worth saying right now because it makes it confusing. Forget what I just said there. But basically, the tzaddik is perfect internally and perfect externally. The Russia is imperfect internally and imperfect externally. He occasionally does a sin. The Benoni is really a Russia who acts like a tzaddik. That's the definition of a Benoni. And that is expected of us as Yidden. God expects that of us. That's not a small feat. He doesn't expect us to be internally clean and selfless, although he's rooting for us, and we should expect that from ourselves, and we should be zocher to that B'ezrat Hashem, but that's not expected of us. But what is expected of every Yid, as the Tanya says, is that you act like a tzaddik, which means you act, speak, and think like a tzaddik.
It's doing perfect.
Exactly. It's not being perfect, but doing meaning thought, speech, and action.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So now this is how the Rebbe breaks it down. So we've got the tzaddik who is internally aligned with God exclusively. He's not aligned with any sense of self.
I mean, it basically is just doing things lishma and doing things lishma and not lishma. I'm saying like the tzaddik is doing everything completely lishma. The Benini is doing it, but he's doing it lo lishma, and the Russia's not even doing it.
The Benini doing it lo lishma. Wow, you just said a really deep thing that I never.
Yeah.
Wow.
What did he say?
I said that the tzaddik basically is doing everything lishma. The Benini is doing it, but he's doing it lo lishma, and the Russia's not even doing it. It's like what Pirkei Avos brings down in Pirkei Avos is a similar thing. Is that what are the different methods of a Russia and a chassid? A chassid is someone who's, different scenarios. There's many different scenarios, but basically the bottom line is that Russia is like what shali, v'shalach shali, right? That whole
Right.
all the same concept of that the Russia is kuloi himself and nothing to do with anyone else or Hashem. Where the Benini is like himself, but really he's doing it for Hashem, but he's really doing it for himself. And chassid is kulei Hashem or kulei for someone else. Shalach v'shali shalach.
But is that true that the Benini is always lo lishma? I don't think so.
I'm using it as a very loose term but the Benini is not always acting like lishma, but he constantly is battling. He's not kulei lishma. He's half and half. Not half and half even, but like sometimes he's doing things lishma, sometimes he's not. He hasn't quite reached the ability to be batal 100% and do things lishma like a tzaddik.
I think what you said might be true. Benoni doesn't do anything to Shema.
So what?
Wait, let I really need to think about that. But
you're giving a title as a klal for a person that he's a Benoni is a Benoni. It's in the action. How are you performing in the action? You're a Benoni in this action. He could be a tzaddik sometimes in an action. His mitzvah could have been kulei lishma sometimes. But in the moment, what are you doing? Are you a Beinoni, a Rasha, or a Chassid Tzaddik?
So that's what we said at the beginning, that these 5 people are not people, they're 5 internal experiences.
Right.
So I'll give you a quick example. We'll finish off on this example, yeah? Everyone can relate to this. You're in your house, you're walking down the corridor, or you're in Israel, you don't have corridors, just have a room. And you see your kids like dirty pants on the floor. Okay. Now I want to see if you can, what are the 3 options?
You can pick it up, put it in the basket. You can call your kid over and tell him to put it in the basket.
No, only you. Your kid's not there. You're by yourself in the house.
Okay. You can not pick it up, leave it there for your kid.
Yeah, that's the Russia.
Yeah. You can pick it up and be like, oh, kid, if only he would know how to put his pants into the hamper. Or you can be like, I love my kid. He's such a great kid. I'm going to put it in the hamper because the pants need to go in the hamper.
Okay, so you went a different kibbutz. It's not wrong. It's fine. I was just going in a different direction like this.
Okay.
Everyone's going to relate to this. I'm for sure everyone's going to relate to this. Yeah. The first guy, you're walking your house, dirty pants on the floor. You just naturally pick them up and you put them in the washing bin. There's pants on the floor. Yeah. The Russia, he walks past them. I'm not picking them up. And then there's me. I see them. I walk past them. I'm not going to pick them up. And I think, if I saw my kid do that, I would say to him, why aren't you picking them up? And then I go and pick them up and put them in the bin, because I know that I've said that to my kid. That's the
Give yourself guilt.
Not guilt. That in that case, yeah. The point is, I needed a reason to do that thing that was good. That Tzaddik naturally did the good. He was aligned. There was nothing.
You had to overcome your nefesh habahamis. You had to convince it.
No, more than that. I had to overcome my nefesh habahamis using something.
Right.
And we're going to say this. I'm jumping ahead now, but it's just worth saying anyway. We'll finish on this. What is it that the Beinoni uses? There's other tools that he has. What's the tool that he uses to not do aveiros?
The schar or the einish.
Yiras Hashem. He has an awareness of the Ribono Shel Olam to the point where, how can you do that right in front of him? It's like when you leave your kid with the computer. You're sitting on the table with the computer, and your 5-year-old child, and you say to him, "Don't touch the computer." Yeah, he's not going to touch it. But the minute you go to the bathroom, there's a good chance he's going to start playing with stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but so what you're saying?
The Beinoni has got a level of Yiras Shamayim. He's got a level of awareness of God that he's like, how can I do that in front of God? He doesn't like that, and he's sitting there watching me.
So then what you're saying is that the tzaddik doesn't eat treif, not because of Yiras Shamayim.
Absolutely. The tzaddik doesn't eat treif because he's absolutely aligned with God, and he doesn't need Yiras Shamayim to stop him from doing aveiros.
You're using the word aligned with Hashem, but the aligned with Hashem is in etzem a feeling of Yiras Shamayim.
So we're moving into the two levels of Yiras Shamayim, which is not Yiras Oinesh. That's not Yiras Shamayim.
Right.
It's called Yiras Chitzonius or Yiras Panemius, Yiras Tata, Yiras Elah, or Yiras Hate or Yiras Boishus. The Tzaddik's Yira is what's called Yiras Boishus. Yiras Boishus means that Yiras Boishus, the best way of describing Yiras Boishus is the feeling that a spaghetti stain would have on your white shirt. If you were a spaghetti, like how I feel when I'm in Chicago on Shabbos with my Strymel.
Like a sore thumb?
Yeah. Exactly. There's like this. There's another guy. Whatever. That's you as boicious, meaning you're so aware of the Avodah Shloim that you still exist. You're like, what right do I have? What that's push embarrassing that I'm here. That's embarrassing. That's not Yiras. That's not called Yiras Shamayim. The way Yiras Shamayim by us is like I'm 80% and God's watching me. You see, it's backwards. It's the opposite. It's God's 95% and I'm 5%. It's the opposite experience.
Yeah, again, you also in translating what the word Yira means in your case of the 80%, I'm 80% and God's 20%. You're translating Yira as fear, whereas God, if you're saying God is 90% and I'm 10%, Yira is more of a reverence or an awe of Hashem.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're both really
tied to Yira.
It's really awareness, and Yira's from Lashon Yira, from Re'iyah.
Right.
And I just saw in the Or Chaim last week that he said that the Geula is going to come not through serving Hashem from Yira, dafka through serving Hashem mi'ava, ascending Yira and going into Ava. That's going to be the final.
Well, Tanya brings that down to many places, I believe, about the Vodas Hashem Yira versus Ava versus Yira.
There's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot to talk about there.
Seems like we brought up a lot of things that there's a lot to talk about in this.
Yeah, but that's with the Yiras Shamayim. Like some things you can say quickly, but the Yiras Shamayim Avos Hashem discussion it's about 10 prakim. It's from it is 10 prakim. It's a bigger richas. But the Tanya definitely, if you want to put it on one foot, the Tanya says that Yira comes before Ava. If you don't have Yira, you can't have Ava. That's it's not real Ava. And okay, so look, we broached it next week. Bezrat Hashem.
Thank you.
Zayagazim.
Have a great day.
You too.
Cool. I have a question. It's probably Nogea later.
Can you wait for a minute, Yitzi?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, so yeah, Gabriel, yeah?
If a Beinoni is an Ovid Hashem, right? A Beinoni is in constant battle.
Yeah.
So what's the avoda of a tzaddik? What's the point?
Okay, we'll try and talk about that next week. That's a big.
And the Tanya says it's avodas hama. It's avodas be'emes when you're a tzaddik, not when you're a Beinoni. So I don't really understand that.
So well, there's a big difference in the tzaddik. You should know, by the way, the difference between the tzaddik gamor and the tzaddik she'ena gamor is infinitely bigger than the difference between the tzaddik she'ena gamor and the Rosh Hashanah.
Wow.
The tzaddik gamor has, for all intents and purposes, stopped being a being.
All right, Rabbi, say get the ball. Culture.
Excellent. Thank you. I was really a little, like you said, a little off tangent, but it's not. It's never off tangent.